Well, hey church, Pastor Kyle here. So excited to be starting up these 3D groups once again and gathering from house to house, different days, different times, all throughout our valley here, just fellowshipping with one another. So important to know people and to be known and to live life together in koinonia fellowship. So we're going to be going through a few bits of discussion this evening, and I wanted to pose a few questions and a few conversation starters for you so that you can have some conversation around what we studied on Sunday morning. If you remember, we talked about a new normal and how COVID, to preserve our health, has brought all kinds of things that we're calling new normals into our lives and things that we've had to alter and adjust to stay physically healthy. And just like we discussed, we saw how, that empty tomb we talked about on Easter, that reality of that, the access we now have to spiritual health is something very much worth creating new normals in our lives spiritually. So at this time, why don't you take a few minutes and discuss amongst yourselves this first question. And that is, how has COVID-19 literally altered your life and your routines? And some of those you might appreciate, some of those might be frustrating. But as you think through those, let those just kind of transcend and become almost metaphors, right? What would be the spiritual equivalent of those things? So maybe for you, you've had to sit alongside your child more and do the schooling online and help them a little bit more than you used to fill in the gap for their teachers. Well, maybe you could say, hey, that's something that's been interesting, but it reminds me I need to fill in that gap, not just let Sunday school teachers teach my kids. And I need to maybe spend a little more time leading them in the scripture. So things like that, letting even the frustrating things or the blessed changes inspire us to go, what's the spiritual equivalent of some of those things that I could adopt in my life as new normals? You know, one of the most powerful tools we have as Christians is our testimony, to speak out loud to one another the amazing things God has done in our lives in the past and is doing presently, and we should testify, right? And so why don't you just take a few minutes now, one to another, and talk about things that maybe were many years ago when you got saved, or we're all in a different faith journey, but just take a moment and reflect and remember things that came into your life when Jesus came into your life. What were those new normals? Maybe you're a little further down your faith journey than some of the other people in the room, and hearing of some things that you've put in place might inspire them. So why don't you share some of your testimonies together to say, man, before Jesus or early in my walk, I kind of had this sort of a rhythm, and I remember when he brought this new normal to my life and how much it blessed you. And just glorify the Lord and share your testimonies with one another about your new normals and what they brought into your life. Hey, in addition to testimonies, one of the more powerful things in the Christian walk is confession. And we hope to begin to build 3D groups and community within our body where we feel comfortable opening up to one another and being held accountable by one another, being able to cover each other in prayer and bless one another. So before we go tonight, why don't you take a moment to just speak to one another about some new normals in your spiritual life that you would like to see put in place, things that are maybe been a struggle for you, things that you need some help with, some prayer for, some accountability to walk into and to walk in new life. So just take some time as you feel comfortable and pour your hearts out and say, man, this is an area of my life I really need the Lord to protect my spiritual health. I need to take this more serious and make some adjustments, make some changes. Be sure to pray for one another. We don't make big changes in our lives in our own strength and our own power. It comes by the power of the Holy Spirit in us. So lift one another up in prayer, confess to one another, and let's live that kind of life together where we get honest and raw and we carry each other's burdens along the way. So share one to another. What are some new normals in your life that you'd like to see put in place for spiritual health? Pray for one another. Encourage one another. God bless.